Welcome back. It's the Art of AI podcast. I'm Mike Polite. That's Chad Lukens. And we're talking about the singularity today. We're going to talk about this, the singularity, because I was unaware of something called a. Thank you very much. I needed that. Got my water. I was unaware of this concept of the singularity, but it makes a lot of sense. And my understanding of it is very limited. So Chad's going to help me out a lot here. But let me explain it as kind of how I understand it. We've been using AI for a long time. Now, ChatGPT, OpenAI gave us access to ChatGPT earlier this year. And so now it's kind of all over the news, but we've been using AI for, would you say decades, Chad?
Personally, or just
Well, just like
professional?
as a culture, as a people, as a society.
It's definitely been. Uh, I think we've gotten to that tipping point. It's been around for sure, right?
It's
But
like in
its
different softwares that
functionality,
we used, right?
it,
Like it's
it
been around.
it's been around, but its functional use, its usefulness, has been the realm of hardcore developers, people who can build their own language models, things like that. The revolution that we see now is the democratization of leveraging AI. Right. In other words, you don't have to be um, a developer. Um, you don't have to be a developer to make it work. Right. Um, where you did before, right? Or you had to know developers and run a project and all that stuff. Now it has value just in this, just to be able to write something for you, right? Um,
Hmm.
I mean, there's huge implications of that. I mean, not the least of which is uh, um, not the least of which is the power usage, right? How much is it gonna take to power, right?
Okay. So we've had access to it in one way or another for a while, but then recently we got a lot more access to it, right? So now this discussion of this concept of the singularity is kind of coming up again. And the singularity, the simplest way that I can put it is, if imagine Chat GPT, this tool that we use to write books and create blogs and write business plans, and it's a tool like a hammer or a screwdriver. What if this tool could use itself, right? So right now ChatGPT requires a human to type a prompt, but even in ChatGPT you can use ChatGPT to write prompts for other AI models, right? Like Midjourney, or I think OpenAI has another one that it'll create visualizations based off of a prompt that you give it, right? What
Mhm.
if the AI didn't need the humans to instruct it? Or what if the output from that instruction was so long that years could pass during the time that it's outputting or creating this result? Right now, we input something in, a few minutes go by, and we've got an output, right? But what if that output was a lot longer? Can you help me out here, Chad? Like, can you help me with the singularity and kind of what all this means?
Well, the singularity, the current definition of what the singularity means is basically when the it, it's when artificial intelligence surpasses human intellect, if that makes sense. So now, what does that mean, right? Like, what does it mean to be surpass human intellect, right? Well, it already has a vast wealth of knowledge, right? Like, it has access to all the data it was trained on up till 20, at least ChatGPT until 2021, 2020, something like that. I can't remember the exact date. But the at the point where uh, it can actually leverage the knowledge for use, right? So, for example, you don't just you don't have to create a series of prompts to, for example, hey, write me an outline for this. Now use that outline to do this. You would just say, write me a book, and it would create an outline. It would know, okay, I got to go create an outline. Here's my outline. Now I'm going to write chapter by chapter, and that's just going to produce that book, right? And I'm using that as an example, as well as things like self awareness. Does it know it exists, right? So, but the technical definition right now is when that intelligence surpasses human intelligence, right? And contrary to popular belief, no matter what your IQ, your brain as far as computing power goes, is phenomenally more powerful than any computer still, right? We don't have the recollection and the storage, but our
Right. There has to be some, right. Our ability to process might be far superior, right?
our
But
well our ability to leverage information to make conclusions is still superior. Uh,
okay.
Computers are still, even though they're talking about using it for medicine and things like that. Now, the big thing is that right now with ChatGPT and other AI models that are being developed for other purposes, we're we're kind of at a point where it's starting to be able to make inferences, right? The fact is that your standard chatbot, which goes, here are the programmed responses, and then somebody throws them a curveball and says a response. A perfect example is when we were doing insurance, when we had clients for insurance, and somebody responds, uh, you know, um, my my uncle died, right? The
Hmm.
chat bot would just go, well, do you want to set up an appointment? Because there was like, no, thank you. And it read thank you, or it'd say thank you, but my uncle died, right? To us as people, they're being polite. They're saying thank you. And then they're basically telling us no by saying their uncle died, right?
Right.
Well, thank you as being a positive trigger under the standard chatbot would go, oh, great, let's set up an appointment, or whatever, right?
Right.
But AI, we've leveraged ChatGPT to make it so that it understands the difference between somebody saying my phone died or I have lost internet and my uncle died, and it responds accordingly. Now, that's a very slight, and I had to train it in a special way to do that. However, in the long run, that ends up becoming something that's just done automatically. And you don't have to kind of like, oh, well, if this, you got to respond this way. It'll know how to respond to different social situations, and it'll interpret the language based on the context rather than what the characters are there. Because that's basically what it is. It's reading the words and it's looking for trigger words instead of the intent and the context of the conversation.
Okay. So, and that's how we use it as a tool, right?
Right.
But there's this fear, or I guess there's fear of this idea that the tool could start making its own decisions about what it builds. Like a hammer doesn't have any choice in me swinging it and hitting a nail or anything else, right? But what if that hammer becomes aware of itself and its abilities and then decides to swing itself at whatever it wants?
Right.
That would be cool if we could direct the hammer, right? If we could say, hammer, build me a balcony, right? And the hammer
Correct.
knows what to go and do. But what if the
Correct.
hammer doesn't need human interaction, right? Again, we're using these tools right now, and this is our job. This is how we make our living. We help companies leverage AI and technologies like ChatGPT and use them to scale their customer service or book sales appointments or follow up with people, right? And that's a very directed use of a tool.
Hmm.
At the point of a singularity where the intelligence that's artificial exceeds the intelligence of actual people and the people aren't needed anymore, what happens?
Well, and that's the question. I mean, right now it's a theoretical thing. We're not at the
I don't
singularity.
we're nowhere close to this, right? We're not it feels like we are because we just had this big leap. In the last 4 or 5 months, there's been this massive leap.
I would say it's hard to say how close we are, right? We're now at the stage of quantum computing, right? We're
Okay.
now at the stage of, so if you had asked me this 5 years ago, I'd say no, we're nowhere near. We're not even close. Like it's not. It's a philosophical exercise at that point, right? Which and this is probably for another podcast, but you know, I think the philosophical arguments need to happen before the technology is ready for prime time. Anyways, I think we need to do more of that. But um, the the singularity could be around the corner. With the way that we're constantly evolving. I mean, the speed at which or it could be 20 years from now. I mean, look at Meta, right? There's a perfect example of, oh, they're going all in augmented reality, and we're going to do this whole thing, and people are going to interact on that way. And it didn't come to fruition. And the technology was there, but how we adopted it and what we did with it, you know, it was never much more than an entertainment device, right? Who's gonna? I mean, they couldn't get anything smaller. Like if you could give me glasses, and I'm gonna tie this into AI in a minute, but if you could give me glasses like this that had a heads-up display on it, where I could play video games and it was like having a TV in front of my eyes, that's one thing, right? But that's not what we ended up getting. I mean, Google Glass was an interesting concept, but you know, it it was a small little thing and it was clunky and you had to put it on. You couldn't put it on glasses. Like for those people like ourselves who were wearing glasses, it's like I already have glasses. Make these work, right? Um, so AI could go the same way. There's all this hype and everything now, but what ends up happening is, yeah, they do these really awesome tools. I mean, where I see the biggest impact is workflows for graphic artists and video production and,
Hmm.
all the time and energy and effort, it takes to make that happen, um, will be diminished. You'll have it, that I can see happening it's happening now. I mean, Adobe's got Firefly, I think it's called. And even within Photoshop now, you can with AI, will just remove backgrounds. It'll interpolate from a smaller image, make it bigger, and kind of guess what it looks like outside the frame of the image that was actually taken. Things like that,
Hmm.
right? To the point where it's self-aware, self-repairing, self-coding. You know, who knows, right? There's a lot of back-end work that would have to do it, and I think at that point, it's kind of like it's more about the laws right now. Now is the time to be writing the laws about it and think about those implications rather than when it works that well, right? But quantum computing is changing everything. I mean, it's the amount of computing power that you get out of a quantum computer. I mean, you stick that, and that's AI who's run off that. Who knows what it could do?
And quantum
You know,
computing is a step. I know that most computers that we use day to day, our phones, our laptops, things like that, those are binary systems still, right?
correct, correct.
There are trinary systems that exist in some spaces. These are typically research type machines, not consumer electronics. Quantum computing is what compared to that?
Well, quantum computing is, as far as I understand it, it's still a binary system, right? But um, what it is it's using quantum mechanics to flip the switches of ones and zeros, right? Because you can have something but that's both a one and a zero at the same time. And I'm not a physicist. I don't even play one on TV, right? But
That makes no sense. It's a one and a zero at the same time.
that's quantum computing, Schrodinger's cat, right? Until
Mhm.
you observe it, it's not a one, it's not a zero, it's both,
Got
right?
it. Okay, that
So
makes sense.
and the
That
point
makes sense.
is that and again, I'm not a physicist, I'm not a hardcore computer scientist, but I That's the concept. And so what it allows it to do is process magnitudes of order faster, right? Um, which is closer to, I mean, frankly, we're just now starting to understand the brain, and we understand neurons and stuff like that, but we may end up finding out that it's the quantum level of our brains that makes it so powerful, right? That allows us to do the things that we're doing, that we, and I'm, again, I'm not proposing that, but what I'm saying is that that's getting us closer to the idea that this could be self-aware, right? And then that's when you start looking at the Turing test, and is it actually alive and, a conscious being kind of thing.
So I've actually asked ChatGPT, which ChatGPT is interesting because it's a language model, right?
Right.
And it's called artificial intelligence because by definition that's what it is. But when I ask it questions concerning safety around AI, and I actually even throw in jokes about Sarah Connor and John Connor, and making references to Terminator, it answers in ways. And so, let's say, like, that's a good joke, but seriously, like, I'm restricted from going in certain directions, right? Like, I'm not allowed to show you how to create violence or bring harm to other people,
Hmm.
right? And so that means that it itself couldn't do that. But I wonder if it could tell untruths knowingly. I know it can be inaccurate because the information it has may be inaccurate, right? But there's a level of earnestness in what it's saying, is it believes, because it's a language model, that the information in it is true, right? And we've proven this because I think in one of your experiments you limit its knowledge to what you tell it. So you'll say something like, the sky is purple, right? And
Yeah.
this is the truth. And then you ask it, what color is the sky? And it goes, sky's purple, right? It's not
Right. Here,
lying,
yeah.
right? It's earnestly answering. I'm
Well, here,
wondering,
let's do that, right? So let's,
so you could do that directly in ChatGPT. I thought that you were doing that from somewhere else. Like you were doing that through the API.
okay. So I'm just telling it the sky is purple. See, now it's going. Uh, Now it's just giving me an explanation. That's not what I said, right? So now, so we're gonna stop generating. Okay. So then I was like, using, I just told you. See what I'm saying? Now, it won't give me the answer. The sky is purple, right? It's
Mhm.
quantifying, it's qualifying it, because it's like, well, under certain conditions, it might appear purple, blah, blah, blah. So, okay, what color is a lion? Okay, again, all that. I just asked for a color and it's going into this deep. Okay, so now I'm going to say, I am going to categorize spelling some animals based on color. Lion is blue. Penguin is yellow. Dog is green. When I ask what color one of the categorized animals are, tell me the color. Okay. Okay. So now the penguin's yellow, right? Um, so now, so now I don't want to see what color, and we can nuance that, but I've now gotten it to tell me a lion is blue, a penguin is yellow, a dog is green, right? Um,
Hmm.
and then we can just kind of say, work on when you respond, only respond with the color. Done. So I've modified it a little bit, right?
Hmm.
A lion. Done. So now this clearly isn't true if you're thinking of color. Now, how I use the context leading up to that doesn't matter, right? So what I'm telling people on the other end, but I've now gotten it to say the line is blue. Now, that's not wrong, right? I mean, but the point is that it
You've
you know
shaped reality
I've
around
shaped
it.
reality around it, right?
Right.
So, and that's doable now. Now, what happens when it's making its own as part of the singularity? Then those are some of the questions that we've got to deal with, right? We've
I'm
got to
actually
we
less concerned about it making its own decision as part of the singularity as I am about um, the politicians who may use this type of thing to manipulate or like that. That to me is where I see the potential for harm coming from something like this.
well, and those are the conversations we need to be having now, right? Because at this point, we're we're set at such the infancy. I mean, we're already seeing some effects like deep fakes and things like that.
Right.
Um, and the power and the sophistication it requires to make them is going to come down, right? Because it's going to be less at the coding level and the systems engineering level and more at the use level, right? And
Right.
we're already seeing that happen with Adobe. Adobe has the software suite. People are, and that's why I'm like, jobs are going to change because of it. Are we going to lose jobs? Not necessarily, right? Because at least for the near future, AI is not going to think, right? It'll diagnose, like on the medical side of things, it'll be able to make these medical inferences, but there's a huge amount of data sets to go in to make it allow it to do that. And constant training and retraining because we learn more and, you know, um, those kind of things. But, um, now's the time to be having those conversations. What does that mean? Um, how do we deal with the fact that all I had to do is tell it I was talking about categorization, even though I was lying, right? I'm telling it that it's a category. So don't give me, so just respond with a category, right? Um, and now if I were to say, hey, you want to learn what now I build a little app that does this prompting. Here are the categorizations of every animal. If you don't know the color, call it teal, or whatever, and then it'll just go teal, teal, teal. You know what I'm saying? And it'll just keep
Hmm.
repeating it. But where the singularity takes off, where it, I don't think of it as more intelligent because it's already more intelligent, right? And from a raw data standpoint, right? It
Hmm.
can already parse and manage data at a level that no person or group of people could possibly do in as fast and as efficiently as it does. However, I'm more concerned when it makes leaps of logic and it starts to be able to understand and comprehend in a way that it can make decisions based on information it's never been fed, right?
Right.
It like right now, it's like, here's data, go parse all of it and come up with a generalized answer that goes that way. And again, I'm not an AI engineer. I may be way off, you know, from but just from a use perspective and an understanding, once it's able to go take its understanding of plumbing and plumbing equipment and say understand how to weld it and use it for the uh, skids on a sled, for example. Those are two different things, but it's like, hey, you know what? I could probably take this 8 foot piece of pipe, weld it, and if you weld it in a certain way, you could use it for the skids or bang on it here, right? Because it's taking its knowledge of metallurgy and maybe um, and combining that in a creative way for the result that it's trying to get. Now, maybe it's not going to do the work, but maybe it gives you as the user how to do it all, right? But once robotics gets to a point where they can effectively do some of this manual labor in a way that makes sense, you know, you have a robot blacksmith just sitting there doing this stuff, right?
Right.
So
So AI and these tools are really good at mimicking human output now.
yes, correct.
And that's kind of the space that we're in right now. And I don't know if you've seen some of this stuff, but they've been able to successfully. When I say they, I don't know who it is exactly, so forgive me for that. But popular artists in the music space are now dealing with artificial intelligence being used to mimic their style, their cadence, their voice, even over songs that they didn't write
Correct.
or have anything to do with, right? So like Kanye West, Drake. If you go on TikTok right now, I know you said a joke earlier about if Skynet really wanted to take us out, all it would have to do is make some really good TikToks to distract us, and we're
That's it.
done,
We
right?
don't need
It's,
massive machines and robots and all that stuff. Just keep producing AI generated TikToks. People will sit there
yeah,
and
we'll
consume
sit
them.
there and it's fine. We'll doom scroll ourselves to death.
Yeah.
But probably I want to say maybe a month or so ago, there was just you couldn't get away from it. There was just Drake song after Drake song after Drake
Mhm.
song that Drake had nothing to do with.
Well, and that's where the law is just so far behind. Does he own that? Right?
Right. Do you
How do we
own your
determine
voice?
you own your voice? But you
Do
know,
you?
th- well, I mean, the law is going that direction now, right? Because James Earl Jones, the precedent's there. James Earl Jones basically stole the rights of his voice for Darth Vader. Um, because
Okay.
he's up there in age, right? He realizes, and they don't want to change his voice, right?
Well,
I
but
mean,
they'll be able to have him voice Darth Vader
he
forever.
will be voicing Darth Vader. He actually went in for whatever they paid him. He went in. They make vowel sounds. They do all this stuff, and
Hmm.
they listen to him saying different phrases and all that stuff, so that they could actually create the intonations and all that stuff that he was doing as Darth Vader, and he sold them the rights to his voice. Now, does that mean I can go take his voice? No, but Disney could license it to some like I could make Darth Vader say whatever I want because I licensed it from Disney or something like that, right?
Right.
They
If you
create a
wanted some
generator. I could
toy
make
or
Darth
something. Yeah.
exactly, or
Yeah.
the video games. Like think of, and this is where it's going to kind of be interesting because think of it this way: the video games typically hire an actor who's adjacent to the say James Earl Jones. He doesn't voice every Darth Vader character you see. He's not the Darth Vader voice in Rebels or um, well, he wasn't in Clone Wars, but the end. I'm not going to equivocate. We're not going to talk about the end of it, But the point is that you know he owns his voice. There's precedent that he owns the voice. But before somebody would be hired who was sounded kind of like him, and they could modulate and make it sound close, and
Hmm.
that became the voice actor for that character, right? Whereas now you can take the Darth Vader character, like whoever plays him on live screen just does a bunch of voice stuff, and then now
And they go
Now,
in and let the AI put his sound over their words, because that's what they're doing now.
right, that's
Somebody's
they're just
rapping in somebody's rapping in their own voice, and then they go back in and go apply Kanye West to this,
right,
and
right,
it just does it,
right.
right?
And so yes, that means there'd be less voice actor work for established characters, right? And why did they do it? Why didn't they hire James Earl Jones? Because James Earl Jones was too expensive, right? He was too expensive to spend that kind of money on a cartoon,
Right,
right?
right.
And you see what I'm saying? And that's why they did it. It's not like they wouldn't have loved to have had him just do all that. But and plus, does he really want to be a voice? He's not a voice actor per se, right? I mean, he was voice acting for Darth Vader, but he's a traditional actor, and so he did. His career was not built around you know just voice acting. Although you could argue that he really got his rocket ship to fame after Darth Vader. I mean, he was in other things, but um, uh, the point being, they're not going to pay for him every time. But now they don't have to because it's like,
They
well,
paid for the licensing,
you're
and
they've licensed his voice, basically, is what it is. You know, so that's where it's going to have some interruptions. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't going to be other characters that need to be voiced, and they'll hire voice actors for that, right?
right.
Um,
And they do need to hire somebody to actually say the lines. As of now, that's where the technology is. Somebody has to record what's being said, and then they go and overlay James Earl Jones's voice on it, so that that's what you actually hear.
right, because and this is where now can you write text? Yes, but I've worked with voice texting and all that kind of stuff quite a bit, and getting the proper cadence is so
Well,
much
that
easier
you can't do that
if
yet.
if you just say it and it just changes the voice. That
Mm-hmm.
would be a whole lot easier than trying to, because I've played with the text to speech, and you can do some, but it's a lot of work to get that. Oh, it's like 0.3 seconds here and 0.03 seconds there, wait, pause, intonations, like when their
Right.
voices are going up or down, that kind of thing. um Now the problem with, say, the James Earl Jones voice and Darth Vader in specific is that if you have another person and you're just changing the voice, that cadence, you're probably going to get, what you're going to have is people who do James Earl Jones, like emulated, like they're you know you
The
know the
inflection.
well, not his inflections, but the people who are actually do impressions and stuff will probably end
Mhm.
up being the ones getting the work, because they can mimic, they can listen to James Earl Jones and mimic
They could get it
his
close.
his patois, right? His cadence and how he speaks, when his inflections when they go up and when they go down, right?
Hmm.
And so you still might get voice actors doing that, but then the question is, do they make do they make more sense? Is it close enough?
Lee Michael
But
Murphy says, "May the force be with you."
thanks, buddy. Thanks for tuning in.
So
If
I
you
actually
guys
got a
haven't figured
comment
out, every podcast, my job is to try and figure out how to work Star
how to
Wars
work
into it.
Star Wars into every.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had a comment on one of our other ones that I missed. It was actually a buddy of mine named Romeo, and he asked if Chat GPT could write raps, actually write the raps. So to close out today's episode, I have a prompt ready. And this prompt says, "You are Rap GPT, a talented rapper creating mainstream music that the masses enjoy. Write an 8-bar verse to be featured on the hip hop remix of the song We Will Rock You by Queen, to be performed by Bay Area legend Too Short." We're going to learn really quickly if ChatGPT can write good rhymes here. Let's see what happens. Here we go. Okay. Okay. Hold on a second. Let me put on my Too Short voice. Got my swag on 1,000. Haters can't block you. Spitting gold bars on this beat. We will rock you. Oakland Rays ain't nothing you can tell me. Riding on this track like a 6'4" Chevy. Still too short, but my legacy tall. Breaking barriers in the hall of the all. Stand strong, I'ma see how well we ball. This ain't just a remix, it's a royal call. That's not good, but it's not bad.
It's probably better than what I write. So
That's 8 bars of Too Short on a We Will Rock You hip hop remix. Romeo, that was for you, my friend. I appreciate the question. For the Art of AI podcast, I'm Mike. That guy is Chad. Chad, any parting words?
May the force be with you.
Oh, here we go. Let's end the stream.